Here we go.
Okay, here we go. So I'm actually here with Bob Carrothers. And so, by the way, if you guys don't know me, I'm Professor Dave Maslach, and I'm a business professor. And Bob Carrothers is a longtime CEO and I think executive coach as well for a long time.
Yeah.
And we're just having a conversation right now. I was just asking him about this. He's part of this program called the Vistas program, which is like an executive coaching program. And I wasn't aware of this. So I took a little bit of a deep dive into it. And because I'm always a little bit nervous about programs. It looks like it's pretty legit. There's great people around the country that are part of it. And I don't know if Bob wants to talk a little bit about what this is. And we could have a conversation about himself. And we're just going to share and have some, just open, real conversations.
Okay. Could you tell me where you're located?
Oh, so I'm actually in Tallahassee. We were part of, there's a big storm that came through. We just dodged it. And yeah, so I'm a professor at one of the large major universities that are in the country.
Okay.
And I teach about strategy and innovation and entrepreneurship and a lot of the stuff that Bob deals with the day-to-day.
Sure.
So maybe we'll we'll begin with this. Is maybe you could share a little bit about yourself, and then get into how you even began getting into this Vistage and where you heard about it and why you think it's actually important.
Okay. Hey, that sounds fair. Way back when I was a owner and CEO of a company called Great West, and we were meat traders, which meant we bought and sold meat byproduct. And those would be like the lungs, the livers, the kidneys, all that kind of stuff. We would buy them, go into a packing house and buy, their entire production for a period, or buy individual truckloads. And then we would resell them to manufacturers, primarily pet food manufacturers. We exported a lot. We imported a little. I did this for about 20 years. And then I sold my company to the management team.
So did you, a lot of people don't know what a CEO does. I don't know if you want to explain that. And then, is this something that you started yourself? Why? Yeah.
That company's one I started out of my living room. And grew it. I think we were at 25 million at our peak. Well, last I know, we shipped as about 60,000 pounds of meat around the country and to Europe. So, why did I do that? I worked for a company. I got fired. I deserved to be fired. I was a crappy employee. And I was really young and didn't know anything. And then I took a job with a meat trading company in Dallas. And I bought and sold meat for them. That's kind of where I learned to trade. And they shipped me to California. Then their controllers stole all their money, and they brought me back to Dallas to see if we could revive the thing. And we couldn't. So I ended up looking for another job. And then I came to Colorado, started a company with two other guys. The partnership was awful, didn't work out. And I just said, to hell with this. I know how to do this. I'm just going to be my own boss and start my own company. And so that's what I did. And I was with that company for 20 years. It was a good run. And they were great people, but I got bored with it. And I decided to start another company, which would take kind of what we did at the meat company, we export a lot of meat. So I knew the export business pretty well. And I had the idea that I could buy U.S. products and export them to countries that really needed it. And it was a great idea. It was the wrong time. And it just didn't work. I didn't realize how long it would take to establish trusted relationships with people. And I ran out of money, so I had to close it eventually, and learned a ton. And so I was looking for another job again. I'd lost a lot of money, so I needed one pretty bad. And I'd been in a Vistage group for a number of years and reached out to my Vistage chair. We were tech at the time. And asked him if there were any positions open. And he said, well, they're looking for a chair in Denver. And they hired me. So that was in 1996. And I've been doing this ever since. And I just love it. So,
and the basic model is that a group of CEOs, say a dozen, they all pitch in a little bit of money and pay your salary, and they all meet, and you guys have
that. Actually, Vistage is an international corporation. We're in 35 countries. We have about 45,000 members worldwide. So I contract my services to Vistage to establish these groups and lead them. They collect the money, they pay me a percentage, and that's how we do it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. But it's, so why, right? Like, this is, from my perspective, and I think a lot of people, they're like, yeah, CEOs know everything. They're running the company. Why do you need a peer group?
Yeah, right. That's funny. Because at the base of it, they don't have anybody to talk. They're at the top of the ladder. Anything they say to their employees can be misconstrued or spread all over the company. You just can't do it. So they're looking for people that are doing their work, walking in their shoes, and to have somebody to talk to. That's really the very basis, I think, of why CEOs join. And also, it makes them better CEOs. How could you not get better if you're spending a day a month in a room with 15 different leaders of companies and having in-depth conversations?
Mm-hmm.
We also bring in a high-powered speaker in the morning that will fly in from somewhere in the U.S. Sometimes they come from our foreign countries, but usually it's from here. And they are the best of the best. They are the speakers you see at conferences with 10,000 people in them. And they come to our group just to spend 3 hours with us and impart their knowledge, do a presentation. Then in the afternoon, we can throw things out on the table to each other just to get input. And, a person will present a challenge or an opportunity or a problem or whatever, and they'll throw it out to the group. They'll explain what it is. Then the group will ask lots of questions to be sure they understand. And then after we do the questions, then we'll go around the room and ask for suggestions. So they'll give their suggestions, their thoughts, their advice, and share their knowledge. Often they will say, well, I tried that once and it cost me $300,000. So maybe we look at it differently.
And you have a mix of private and public companies that are part of it?
Not my groups, but Vistage throughout the United States has all kinds of companies in it. I tend to lean more towards entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Just because I was one and I have a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
We also have hired CEOs that are in the group, but I like it if they have an entrepreneurial bent. They're not big corporate guys.
It's and try to be very real. It's really scary, right? For a lot of people, if they're starting and building something, they don't know what to do. They're making stuff up as they go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And where do you turn to, right? Us business school folks, we often don't have the answers.
Uh-huh.
And we're probably the worst people to talk to because the research is often completely off of what's actually going on.
Right. Right.
So I'm very sympathetic to the idea of having, peer mentors that are.
In addition, I also do a coaching session with each one of them once a month. So I'll spend 90 minutes to 2 hours.
And what does that typically entail in terms of?
The conversations can go any which way. I don't come in with an agenda. We talk about what they want to talk about. And they have the floor. They'll do the speaking, and I'll try to ask great questions. And it spurs their thinking. They get to hear themselves think out loud. They'll, even as we go, they might say, no, as I listen to this, I think this is a dumb idea.
But everybody has great ideas.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, no, and a lot of people depend on them, not just their business people, but their family. They got to be good mothers and good fathers.
Absolutely.
So that's not an easy job. And to mix the two together, and especially for our female CEOs, also have kids, they're probably involved in running the household. And that's just a whole nother career,
And not to mention they're facing a whole bunch of uphill battles with legitimacy concerns from not everybody is accepting, right? So you have to be
right.
Yeah, you have to figure out how to deal with this. How do you internalize? You gotta, and that's the thing, right? You have to accept the world as it is, and then you have to go and figure out, how do I embrace this world that is clearly, it often could feel messed up.
Oh yeah,
right. And then you have to figure out, how do I deal with this? It's not, I wish the world was more idealistic, and I wish it worked in the way that was intended.
Yeah.
But so that's often the challenge that a lot of people have to deal with. And then who do you talk to?
That's exactly right.
Right.
Right. And these groups develop a high degree of trust, and so they feel safe in discussing anything. It's not always business. A lot of it's personal.
A lot of it's personal because it butts up against, there's these crazy expectations that we put on ourselves often. And I feel this that all the time as well, that, I should be working around the clock, that the only thing that matters. So I'm going to give you a bit of an So I'm a full-time professor doing research at a large major U.S. university. I don't like to try to keep separation of church and state.
Sure.
And then I'm trying to build the Reciprocity Project, which began as this platform that I thought, hey, it would help out these researchers, make this platform so that we can get feedback, and it would be so easy, it would work just perfectly.
Right.
And all I had to do was you put the software together, and then, it doesn't work out that way.
Right.
And then you have to, how do you get the word out? How do you build trust, like you're saying? How do you, so I do a lot of this. I have to do it, so my work day is 9 to 5. So then I have to do it from 5 to 9, the weekends, and then maintain a family, without my wife getting too upset. We're spending a whole boatload of money all the time on this that seems like it's going nowhere. right? Like these are typical,
Yeah, you sound like the typical entrepreneur.
like flabbergasted, right? Like I thought it was supposed to work this way.
Have you put your house on the line yet?
No, not yet. And that is just that's too risky. I hope you don't run into those circumstances, but I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I used to. We have a part of what we do is we have a special groups for guys like you who are starting companies, and they run. I used to have a couple of those groups, and it was amazing on the issues just like you're talking about. And each one was going through it, and they said the best thing I get out of the group is I've learned I'm not the only one having these problems.
You're not the only one. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's very therapeutic, right?
Oh yeah, it is. And it's helpful.
Yeah.
You know, how do I put a bank proposal together?
Yeah. I know. I know. And everybody's trying to rip you off too. Like you don't know who's legit and who's not. And
exactly right. Yeah. That's why I love entrepreneurs, because you put everything on the line for an idea.
Yeah.
And the ones I work with generally work out and grow nice companies. And so
that's the thing, right? Is how do you, because it's delusion. Being an entrepreneur is delusion. And ultimately, right, you're deluding yourself, and hopefully you trick enough people out there that they believe in what you're doing as well.
You have an idea that works. That's good.
Yeah, I know. So how do you manage that? Like, how do you manage that somewhat delusion of, at some point there is a line, and it's a magical line. I don't know where it is. Is it when you put up your house up for sale? Is it like, what point do you say like, hey, this is it? Or do you just keep going with it? Like, how do you manage that? Very.
I did. That's why I lost the company, is that I was too arrogant. I didn't listen to people. I knew I had the next best thing, and people would try to tell me, no, this is probably not going to work. And the indications were it wasn't working. We weren't making sales. So I was one of those people, and I got knocked down pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm coaching, I bring a lot of that to the coaching session. A lot of what reality can be with their dream. And then the group does it too. They question. And we've only had a few that left the group because they didn't believe, they only thought the group was trying to pop their bubble, and they went on to crash and burn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we just try to help them see reality and readjust. They might have a great idea, but the way they're going about it is a little wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to help them with that.
How much humility is involved in being, as a CEO? What do you think about humility?
I think it's really an attribute that they must have. Because, all their ideas aren't going to work. And some things don't happen the way they want them to. In the groups, they have to be vulnerable and listen to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of saying, hey, I need some help here. So I think it's a key factor in a successful leader. Vulnerability, I guess they're both kind of the same, but they're really necessary.
It's embarrassing, right, to admit that you have. So and that's actually a research area of mine, is learning from failure. And there's all these emotions that happen.
Oh yeah.
that come up and you're so embarrassed. It's like it's all this stuff when you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, of you. You know what? How do you manage that as a CEO, as somebody that's trying to build something?
You know, you got to remember it's business. You know, if you're not trying new things and failing, you're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just part of it. You've got to accept failure and pick yourself up and get going. And I think it's learned over time. And in your people, when they go and they make a decision and it doesn't go the right way, that's just a chance to learn and grow. It's just another opportunity. And you have to have that attitude in your work. So I see that a lot. I know with me, it sucked. And here I was supposed to be this hotshot CEO, and I crashed and burned.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't get a job really because people knew me, and not that I was a bad person or anything, bad employee, but they probably were my competitors and they already had people in place. And so it's, I tried other things and finally said, this isn't going to work. And that's when I reached out to my chair. And that was the absolute best thing that ever happened to me, besides my marriage, of course. But it was because I learned a ton, and I've been able to share that with people over the years and help them be more successful and, pick themselves up and get going.
So I'm listening to your story, and you're in the meatpacking industry, and I'm assuming not everybody's in the meatpacking industry. I had experience with that.
Right.
How does your experiences actually translate to other people in different industries? It seems really. I mean, what would you ever have to say to somebody that's starting up a software business someplace?
I love that question. I get asked a lot, especially from candidates. I had a doctor once that said, how will they be able to help me? I'm a doctor, and I had to really think about it, but 90% of all business is the same. It's people, it's money, it's finance, it's sales, it's marketing, it's across all companies. And you have to play that game pretty well to win, And so the 10% that deals with your product or your delivery of your product, we may be able to help, but probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But in all the other parts, everybody's walking the walk.
We're just people.
We're just people. We're humans. That's all we're. And we're flawed.
Yeah, we're deeply flawed in many different ways. And coming to terms with that is often the answer, right? And that's stuff that you're not really taught in school as much.
Yeah.
Of how do you come to terms with some of these things, and when do you go ask? And so having a peer group, a support group of just simply saying, you know what, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Should I go talk to somebody? Who do I bring in my company, or any of those number of things? It's just such a vital part of doing business.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So tell me about, what are the biggest issues that people run into as they're transitioning from, different stages in their business? I don't know if you believe in a sort of stages model of business, but say, like, what would it be for people to go from 0 to 10 people, employees, and then from 10 to 250 and then beyond?
Mm-hmm.
What you expect?
Um, from 0 to 10, that's hard because you're trying to get a company going with not many resources. So it's just pure guts. And when you get it going and on a roll, you'll hire the people you need. They might not be the best because you can't afford the best, but they'll be good. And they will take you to the 10 people stage. After that, the company starts to grow. You're better known. Your marketing is working or not, but you know enough to tweak it. Your product is starting to sell, and you know pretty much how to increase the sales. Or if you don't, then you probably can hire somebody that does. And the company will grow. And when it gets bigger, it's just a matter of hiring the right people. You know, we have a lot of discussions about, is it the time to hire a CEO? You know, we have some of them that says, you know, I'd be better off if I brought in a CEO to run the company and I could be the guy that does the R&D, which I love. We have numerous discussions about how to hire people, how to fire people, how to find people, which is tough right now. It's really tough. And I think it's going to get tougher from what our economists say. And, but you hire the people you can afford, and probably beyond what you can afford, because they will bring in returns that are much higher. And you just grow. You may have to go out and find outside investors, but you're going, you have a good story, the thing's working, so that's something you can do. I don't recommend it, but some people do it. So you just get on a path and you become a better leader. You communicate like crazy and develop a culture that keeps you going. And that's kind of what I see.
And I would like to question you about that and push back. Why is it? Where should you get? Oh, it looks like you're frozen. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Why are you concerned about getting outside funding and getting, maybe we talked about this early on about putting your house up for sale. Why should you be concerned about that?
Because it depends on the business you're in. You may have to buy some very expensive capital equipment, a CNC machine or a big press or some big thing that costs $1 million. Well, you may not have that in your bank account, so banks may not want to invest in it or not loan you the money for whatever reason. You may need to hire more people. You're growing so fast, you're right, you need more cash. It could be a number of reasons. But some people see that, hey, I'm going to run out of money unless I get more money. So I better go find some people that'll, become a partner or buy in or loan me the money, whatever.
And what's the dangers of that? Why should you be concerned about, essentially you're talking about growing quickly, and why should you be concerned about bringing more resources in at various different stages, particularly early on?
Early on, I don't recommend it at all, but it's dangerous. What if your idea doesn't work? What if you kind of blew it in the concept and now you're stuck with all this machinery and you also owe somebody $1 million and they want their money back? It's just really complicated and can create huge headaches.
So what you're saying is the stuff that's on YouTube that tells people how they can get a whole bunch of money, and a bunch of investors is a little.
Now run the other way.
Or run the other way, absolutely.
Redo your thinking. If the bank's telling you it's not a good investment, maybe I'll listen.
I mean, there you go, folks. You're listening to somebody that has many years' experience and talking to a lot of people around the country that actually build legitimate businesses. I'm assuming many of them you probably well know,
Right.
telling you to slow down and take your time. It's often, things just take time.
Yeah, that's right.
And then how do you, okay, so if it takes time, how do you develop the message, or what do we do today in terms of building something?
Well, you said it. I think you just got to grow at a safe pace. You won't be able to borrow any money from a bank for at least 2 years. You got to prove your concept, and that you have the ability to pay the loan back. You will have to come up with friends and family money in the beginning just to get off the ground. I don't see any other way, unless you do a second on your house or run your credit cards up, which is what I did in my early stages of the meat company off my living room table. But I had to have some money to operate. And I tried to keep it not borrowing any money except from business sources.
And how common is that with your peer groups?
It's pretty common in the early stage, in the growing companies. I mean, the $1 to $3 million range. It's has to be.
It's super, super fascinating, because this is not how the research sort of depicts. A lot of the research data that we get is publicly available. So everybody always uses data on venture capital. And so the focus, the story that's often told by a lot of people is that, you just need venture capitalists to come in. And yet, people that have experience, that's not the case, right? No venture capital is ever going to come in. Capitalist is ever going to come in, particularly at early stages, unless you fooled them pretty badly, or you somebody that's very wealthy in your family. Right.
But for them to come in, you've got to have a great idea that they think they can help you grow it and make a lot of money fast.
Quickly. Very
quick. And not many companies have that. Airbnb did, Uber did, I think, and I don't know if they're profitable yet. I don't follow them. But, sometimes that's the case, and they also knew somebody and were able to talk to venture capitalists and really sell them on the idea.
And you live in, is it Colorado or Oklahoma?
No, I live in Denver.
Denver. Okay, Denver. So that's a challenge, right? Like, not all of us live in Silicon Valley, in the Valley in San Francisco. Like, who do you turn to?
Right. There's some venture capitalists here. People will reach out to the guys in the Valley. Denver just had their Denver Startup Week, where they venture capitalists and angel investors and people come together to come meet people may have a great idea. I don't know how often that actually works, where they hook up with a venture capitalist and then, 5 years or whatever, they're wildly successful. They don't own the same amount of the company they used to own, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's rare. It's also like me becoming better than Michael Jordan and fly with the Bulls. It's not going to happen.
Really? I thought you would be. I thought you'd be very good at it.
Well, some venture capitals are very good at it, and we have great companies because they did.
Absolutely. But we also have to think about, on their side, right? Their model is they're looking at the most riskiest returns,
Right.
and they have to get a portfolio together.
Right.
So their job is to get very risky ventures and give them money so that they grow extraordinarily fast. So one
Right.
out of the 20 or whatever companies that they have in their portfolio actually becomes a big hit, and then the rest of them, they wish they would do better.
Right. Right.
Wishing is different than it actually happening, and it could be harmful, right? Because you're really trying to accelerate things so quickly.
Yeah. It's not a great strategy.
From their perspective as investors, I think maybe it is, but if from the entrepreneur, you have to be careful,
right?
And no, not everything is going to be like that. Like it's not. Oh, that's okay.
No, I'm standing up. I'm just wanna.
Now you're going.
Let's see if this is still coming.
I did that for many years, the stand-up desk. And it's hard to think after a while. I get it. So I bounce back and forth.
Yeah. So I've never had anybody that does venture capital. It's all kind of the seat of your pants. It's organic growth. And I've had some that have bought some companies and taken them and grown them significantly, and sold them for $1 And that happens. And so that's, maybe you have the idea that if I had that company, I could do so much more with it than they're doing. Or I'd have this idea I think would turn it around. I think that's a decent idea if you can swing buying them. And usually those are ex-corporate people that have an entrepreneurial bent, and they have some money from that they've accumulated on bonuses and stock and all that stuff. But the venture capital, it sounds so sexy. There's so many. I think the craze going on right now with the young people is have as many companies as you can, so you can say, yeah, I'm the CEO of 4 companies. I remember the day there was 8 companies.
Oh my goodness gracious. That's expensive, just paying for the registration.
Right. And I said, how are they doing? He said, well, some of them I don't know about how it's doing. Some of them are doing okay and some of them aren't. But the fact he didn't have his finger on the pulse of each one of those businesses was scary.
So what does it so what do you think would take a company from 0 to 10? For those that are entrepreneurial minded that are listening to this, what is it? Is it you throw a bunch of money at? Do you just need one good person? Are you the person that does everything?
It is in the beginning. It's got to be. You can't afford to hire somebody else.
And what happens when you hire somebody that is, are you going to be able to hire the best?
Probably not, but you can hire somebody that's good enough for your phase of business. You're not going to want the ex-COO of Caterpillar come into your place and try to run it. He'll be bored and quit. And it will drive you crazy.
Yeah.
So I think, the early stages, you're by yourself. You have an idea that you think will work. You're out selling widgets that you have got a handle on, or you're manufacturing stuff in your garage that you're selling on the internet, and it's starting to take hold. And so you're generating some profits, and you do more and more of that, and you generate enough to where you can hire a second person, maybe an assistant or a salesperson, or with me, the first one I hired was an accountant.
That's quite. So was it more bookkeeper or an accountant?
She was a bookkeeper / my assistant.
Yes, that's the typical. from my perspective, it's just, I mean, you've got so many things that are going on often.
Right. Right. And the books were really important.
Yeah.
For me to ever borrow money, I better have a very clean book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as we got going more, I hired somebody that could to buy and sell meat. And he was not a meat guy. He was a finance guy. But he just loved the new job. You know, he was hard worker. He was smart as hell. He had great ideas. He and I worked together very well, and eventually he bought into the company and became my partner.
I love it. I love it. That is so it's stereotypical in terms of how this all plays out.
That's right. And he got going, and with the two of us buying and selling meat, we made more money, and we were able to hire somebody to do our trucking. You know, we needed a logistic person because the more meat we were selling, the more we were shipping.
Mm-hmm.
That became more than a full-time job for sure. I think we had 2 or 3 of them. And then after that, I think we hired another trader who was great. And the 3 of us kind of did the business. You know, we were rocking and rolling. And we did more marketing. We, of course, got more sales. Our reputation took hold. People knew us and trusted us. So it just kind of progressed along that way.
So you keep saying this idea. You made notes about having clean books. You've mentioned about trust.
Right.
These are soft things, but they sort of represent integrity, I would say.
Yeah.
Why is that important? I thought business is about swindling other people and making sure that you get the best deal all the time.
Yeah, you can do that for about 2 weeks. You know, it's just, I think integrity is everything. That's the first, and that in your core values in companies, it's always one of the things, but it means something different to everybody. So you better have it well defined. But I had a great reputation because I did not screw people.
Mm-hmm.
We had a problem, we worked it out. And if it was our fault, we fixed it or paid for it, you know? And because of that, people would come to us for things that they needed done quietly that they didn't want to get out. You know, we could, you know, a packing house might call me and say, hey, I got 7 loads of beef lungs in the freezer. They're growing. I need to get rid of them. I'll give you guys a great price if you'll take all of them and go sell them.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll come from you and not me, and people won't know I'm over, you know, I have over inventory.
Mm-hmm.
So we got, you know, that became a lot of what we did. On the other side, buyers would come to us and say, we need 30 loads of beef lungs in the next 3 weeks. And we don't want people to know that we're out on the market with this. So they come to us and they say, could you go find them? Which we did. And it just, there's so many reasons. You got to be straight up. You know, you can cheat people. Sure. There's a lot of opportunities to make a lot of money on some deals if you cheat them, but that's going to get out.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to know that. And then you got, okay, I'll do business with them, but I don't trust them. You know, it's got to be crystal clear what we're doing. And that restricts your ability to do your business. And it's not worth it. You may make a lot of money at one time, and then it'll cost you a lot of money for a long time.
Very, very long time.
Forever sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, that was my theory of doing business.
It's very interesting. I'm very sympathetic to what you're saying. I think it's incredibly important because we don't know the right. I mean, if you come into it with this sort of humble attitude, we don't know what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And everything is kind of uncertain. You're kind of making things up. And as long as you approach it in as best as an honest approach as possible, and then there's always misinterpretations.
Exactly.
But knowing that you're open with it, I think is such an important part, and not trying to. Right. I think when you get in the belief that you have to hide and show that you're better than you are, or try to persuade, all of the negotiation tactics that you hear about, particularly business schools are horrendous for this, right? All of this sort of short-term stuff, that it doesn't work out in the end, in the long run.
Right. Exactly. You have to follow your heart. You have to do what's right in your soul to be successful. You have to have a strong vision. You got to know where you're going. You got to sell people on that vision, and you don't want to put up roadblocks that are going to get in the way of you getting there. So there's so many reasons why to do it the correct way. But I got swindled out of $100,000 once.
Oh my gosh!
But they were professional swindlers. I mean, they did it.
Lesson learned, I guess. Right?
They set us up just really well.
Oh my gosh! What a hard feel. That's a hard lesson.
Yeah, sure was.
Yeah. How do you prevent yourself from that happening?
If somebody's a crook and they're out to get you, and you're an honest businessman, you don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
You just got to accept it and be very diligent in who you do business with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they wired money to us for a while to get started, and finally they were just performing so well that they said, "Hey, can you give us some open credit?" So we did, and they bought a lot of loads of meat from me and disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we knew what they were doing because we'd see those same loads of meat in the marketplace at a lot less money than we sold it to them for. So they were turning them into cash pretty darn quick.
Oh, that's unbelievable. But what do you do, right? You never live that down, right? You always have that feeling with you, like,
oh, I will never forget it. I called the FBI, and I said, "This is going on. You guys should know about it." And they sent a guy out to me, and we talked, and he said, "It's hard to prove fraud, and it's too early. We can't get involved right now." About, I don't know, 7 or 8 years later, they called me back, and they called me and said, "That time you called us and there was this company doing this stuff?" He said, "Could you tell me more about that? It appears they've done it about 10 more times."
Oh my gosh.
And we need to do something about it. I ended up testifying.
Wow.
But you don't want to go through that.
No, it's just a giant waste of time and money, and you take years off your life.
Right.
Because then you're always thinking about it. But then, on top of it, the FBI doesn't have the resources to pursue, to this stuff. They've got it's basically they got 6 guys in a fancy car, basically, pursuing this stuff.
Right.
Sure.
No, we don't want to go through it, so you got to be pretty darn diligent.
Well,
sometimes it's probably going to happen. If you're in the retail business, look at shoplifting now.
Yeah.
How do you stop shoplifting?
I know. I heard that this is a legitimate thing. People go into Walmart. This was just a couple of years ago. But yet Walmart was saying that people will go and they'll change the little tags on the items.
Right.
And then they'll go through the self-checkout and scan something that looks like it's, 99 cents and it's really $10.
Right.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's or they just go in and they fill up their clothes with stuff and run out the door and jump in their car and take off.
Yeah, and that's where you're right. It's you have to really just think. You have to change your perspective a little bit on that, and just understand that perhaps they needed it a little bit more than you did.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, it's just it eats you up. And that logic is not for them. Like that's not like saying that they are good. It's for you to process this.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. You can't know. It's a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
when you gotta build it into your budget. And if you can't, often people can't handle that amount of loss and they go out of business.
well, that's a lot of money, right? Like 100,000 for you probably was a lot of money at that time.
At that time, it was huge.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we were going to make it.
Wow. Wow. That's an incredible story, but just that's part of that's, so
You really want to be an entrepreneur?
that's all right. I know, but that's that's where having a peer group is such an incredibly important part,
Right.
Because then you do have people to talk to of like, hey, am I this is feeling weird to me right now. Am I right to feel these weird spidey senses? Or who should I need this piece of equipment. AI is a big thing, for example, right now. Is like, who do I turn to that's legitimate? That's doing something in AI.
Right. Right.
And there's a reason why companies get extraordinarily big is because they have legitimacy and trust, right?
Right.
To offer these companies, even though, everybody likes to crap on Walmart, but Walmart, they've done some pretty good things to get to where they are today.
Oh, yeah. They've taught logistics to everybody, a lot of people.
A lot of people, but they're also on, they try to be on the up and up, best as they can be.
Yeah.
Right.
I love Walmart. I think they're a great company.
I think so too. I think often they get a lot more criticism than they warrant. But so is there anything that you would like to tell? So my audience skews the gamut. There's lots of researchers. There's lots of CEO types. There's also, people that are just starting out. A lot of it tends to be, more male between the ages of 20 and 35 years old. What would you like to tell them in terms of starting a business, being a CEO? If there was something that you would like to write, or maybe a better way to say this is, if you have a spouse or a partner, what would you like to tell them in terms of what this is all like?
What you hear about being an entrepreneur is probably not even close, and I don't think the business schools teach it. I don't think they have any idea because they've never done it. If you say, I want to start my own company because I'm tired of working this much and I'll make a lot of money, I can only work when I want to, that's a myth. You're going to work your butt off, probably harder than you ever have worked in your life. You're going to take a lot of risk. You may lose money, but you have the chance to make money too. Do it legitimate. Be honest, have a strong vision that you believe in, hire the right people, which is sometimes a struggle, but you learn how to do it. Fire the right people when they need to be fired, not 6 months later after you've done figuring out he's not that nice a guy. And do what it takes. Business is a game. If you play it correctly, you'll win. But it's, if you play it wrong, if you miss some of the things like integrity, tracking your money, knowing what your cash flow is, knowing where you stand in the marketplace, hiring the right people, firing the right people at the right time. You have to make all those moves correct. And if you do, you win. If you don't, you're bound for problems. That's kind of what I've learned over the years. It's not all it's cracked up to be, but when you win, it's magnificent.
And what
A lot of good friends that have sold their companies for mega bucks. You know, I have one that they sold their company for $500 million, roughly $500 million. That's pretty good. And the rewards are there if you do it correctly and you do it with honesty and integrity.
And what would you tell somebody's spouse that's going through this entrepreneurial journey?
They're going to drive you crazy because you're not going to know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. With me, I didn't bring it home. I went through so much stuff at work. I didn't want to come home and talk to my wife about it all night, you know, because she was nervous. She wanted to hear the stories. You've got to just kind of let them follow their dream, but rein them in once in a while if you can. But make sure you check those points because it's your money too, and you don't want to be losing it. And I think your spouse who's doing this has to understand that.
It's such an important part.
Mm-hmm. Family comes first, okay? That's the major thing.
I'm so glad that you're teaching that and sharing that to not just this audience, but the people that actually do this on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
It really is. You really have to center yourself off.
Mm-hmm. And I would say get them in a peer group. I don't care if it's a group that your accountant puts together or clients. Just find a peer group that you can get into. Vistage is the best. We are absolutely the best, but we are not cheap. You know, it's a pretty sizable investment, but the return on that investment is huge. And it continues to be huge as long as you stay in Vistage. I've just watched it. So that's the main thing. Find somebody you trust that is kind of walking in your shoes and maybe ask them to be a mentor and go find a peer group. There's several of them around, and there's more and more. Everybody looks at what's going on and they're forming all kinds of peer groups. But look at Vistage if you think you can afford it, and look at it anyway to decide if you may be able to. Vistage is we're all over the world. We're in, like I said, 35 countries. That's why I asked you where you were. Since we talked so early, I thought you might have been in a foreign country.
Well, Florida seems like a foreign country. So
It is a foreign country. We have a lot of people that do what I do in Florida. You know that.
Yeah. Florida's a little bit like Texas.
We got a lot of people that do what I do all over the United States. It doesn't have to be a big city. I mean, we're in Boise. We're in, I think, Fargo, North Dakota. I mean, we're in all over the place. So just go to vistage.com and say that you're interested, and they'll have somebody get in touch with you.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Bob. So this is Bob Carrothers. If you're in his neck of the woods, you can look him up. He's on LinkedIn and everything.
Right. Yeah, if you're looking to be in a peer group, I'd love to talk to you, even if you're not, but this sounds a little interesting. I'd love to talk to you, and you can get hold of me through LinkedIn.
So thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I'm just going to go off of this right now. I'm going to stop recording, but thank you so much for spending your time here, and we can have a quick conversation.
Yeah, this has been fun. I love this.
I hope so. I hope it was a good experience. I try not.
No, it's great. I'd love to do it again if you need someone.
Um, and that would be fantastic. Or if if you have anybody else that's in your group, in the Vistage group, just get them to reach out to me. Sounds like a great organization.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, I had to do a little bit of due diligence with it at the beginning. It looked like it was, you guys are doing the right things.
Right. Talk to a chair in Florida.
If you know of anybody, I don't know if you know of folks that are around here or not at all.
I probably do, but I don't remember them right now. I'll see what I can do for you and send you their name.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I would appreciate that. That would be fun.
Yeah, great.
And hopefully it's not too scary for them either. I'm so glad that you shared your experience, though. This is it's good for other people to hear that they're not crazy because we're so inundated on social media, particularly, like these platforms are selling such often just crap.
Right.
And for some reason those go viral because they're showing these, like a 21-year-old or 25-year-old driving around in a jet with pain and all this kind of. It's just utter.
Yeah. It's a myth, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I thank you so much. I don't want to keep you too much longer. We're right at an hour right now, and
Okay.
what I'm going to do is put this online. I've got multiple, so LinkedIn, probably YouTube, and podcasts.
Great.
So a whole bunch of areas. So I'll try to do that.
Okay, super. Well, thank you very much. I've loved it.
All right.
Will you send me a link to?
I will. It might take a week or so, but
Okay.
Once I get to it.
No, that's great. I look forward to it. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And sorry about getting you up so early.
No problems.
I get to grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah. No problems. Well, thank you. I loved it.
Okay. See you later.
Bye. Bye-bye. Oh, we're going to end this damn thing.